you being a big Xbox guy, you know that Metal Gear 5 is the free game this month, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I guess I've learned a lot about who I am as a person, like in the 2 years change.
Yeah.
Because whenever I first played Metal Gear 5, like 2 years ago.
Is it really 2 years ago?
Yeah, give or take.
Golly.
When I first played, I only used weapons that had the stun or the tranquilizer effect on them because I wanted to either capture every soldier I could that would be useful and then let the others live to tell my story. And then, like, I would carry one damage weapon in case, like, I needed to fight, like, a robot or something like that, like one of the big mechs.
Yeah.
And in the 2 years, my ideology has changed where I no longer spare anyone. If they are expendable, like if they're useless, if they're not going to contribute to my success, like if they're not going to make my mother base better, I don't see the point in letting them live.
I don't think they put the new map in. I think they lied to us. I think the internet is full of liars.
And that goes to show how much I've changed as a person. Because before I was willing to give everyone a chance on Metal Gear. And now if you can't contribute, I don't see the point in sparing you. And I don't know how I feel about that.
I never changed. I was always this way.
I also acknowledge that it's a video game. And that's not who I truly am as a person. Maybe it's just I'm trying to speed through the game now, and it's just more convenient to kill who you don't need. But that just says a lot about who I am. Welcome to the podcast.
If they're not A or S rank, you might as well get out. I am not going to waste my time.
Well, I don't even waste my time with A rank anymore.
Yeah, a lot of times
unless
I wait
they have
for
like
S.
multiple A++ rank. Like if they've got like all 6 of their stats A++ or at least one S rank, I'll save them.
Yeah.
Or if they're just like a heavily armored unit, I don't have the time to try and slowly kill you. I'll just extract you to save time. But we're not talking about Metal Gear 5. And we're also not talking about a movie we went and watched because we're lazy this week and we're poor. And honestly, we just didn't want to go watch a movie. I'm also sick, so I apologize for the way my voice sounds. I have a cold that I'm trying to get over. And Doan has nothing to apologize for. That's just how he always sounds.
Oh, thanks.
I'm kidding.
Made me more self-conscious about the way I sound. That's fine.
You're self-conscious.
You know how like some people have issues with their image. I have more of an issue with the way I sound when I'm talking.
Dude, I have a huge issue with the way I sound because I sound differently on recordings than I think I sound.
Exactly.
And then when I hear it, I'm like, oh, gross, that's me. Oh, that's disgusting. But anyway, we're about 4 minutes in and we've talked about nothing.
All right, well.
We're talking about Star Wars, or more, I guess, to the point, we're talking about our viewpoints of Star Wars.
Well,
the prequels, the sequels, the new ones.
Because it's topical right now. Solo comes out
tonight,
and we don't really care about this movie. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, obviously.
Well, let's go ahead and just slowly get up to that point. Yeah. So, Doan, I would say that I'm, I guess, a moderate Star Wars fan. I love every movie. I love the Clone Wars. I never really read a lot of books and stuff, and as you clearly know, I didn't play a lot of the video games. I would consider you more of the Star Wars fan.
I love
of the two of us. Is that a correct assessment?
I guess so, yeah. I love Star Wars. It's when the internet was still fairly fresh and new, and Wikipedia became a thing. that was what I would do. I would spend my free time reading Wikipedia to learn everything I could about every little thing. I learned things about native animal alien things on planets that you had never and would never see ever in the movies. They're just like, it was in one scene in a cage somewhere, and like, for some reason, there it is. And now I'm gonna go learn about it because I was a geek and that's all I wanted to do.
And I didn't know what a Twi'lek was until I got into college. So it's very clear that there was a lot of difference in, I guess, the absorption of knowledge with Star Wars, but also, I guess, like, the love of it. I would definitely say I'm a fan, and Doan, like, in the nicest way possible, I would categorize you as a fanatic.
Oh, that's fine.
Because you're a fan, but you also, like, you study everything you can about Star Wars, which is a respectable thing. If there's something you love, I can respect if you study it that hardcore. Let me get your opinions on Star Wars, like
overall, or like
overall, like your overall viewpoint of Star Wars.
I think it is an amazing universe that we could only hope and dream of, which obviously we have because they're movies and books and every other form of medium. But for me, that was like the thing growing up, and even today I get like little like butterflies in my gut whenever I see something Star Wars related, because it's just like, oh, that's Star Wars, and that's just how I am. And Star Wars isn't the only franchise that I feel that way about. I feel that way about a lot of them, but Star Wars was very deeply rooted in my childhood and stuff. So
I agree with you for the most part. Star Wars is at a special place in my heart. I remember when Episode 1 came out. That was really my first like brush with the Star Wars movies, and like I talked about how much I loved Episode 1, and my dad was like, psh, you don't even know Star Wars. Like, you don't even know. And then he introduced me to the prequels, and I continuously fell in love with them. And not the prequels, the originals. And
that's a TV show.
It's just essentially like, you know, the comparisons between Star Trek and like the comparisons to like even like World War II stormtroopers and stuff like that, and like conflicts.
I mean, that's a reference.
Yeah, that like, but like the battles that we face in real life being like shown on the big screen, but also being shown in like what is essentially space knights and space magic.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. It's just a very cool concept.
Yeah.
And George Lucas is a genius that very clearly was very, very, very far ahead of his time. Because when the first movies came out, they weren't anywhere near as popular as they are today. I would say that Star Wars very rightfully has its own genre. That nothing can like be added outside of the Star. Like nothing outside of the Star Wars universe could ever match how popular Star Wars is. Like movies like Valerian, or what was that one with like Chris Hemsworth in it?
I have no idea.
Not Chris Hemsworth. Channing Tatum. It was like they're movies with very similar stories, but they're so like little, and because they don't share the Star Wars name, they'll never gain that Star Wars level of popularity.
Yeah.
So we've established what we very clearly like about Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Let's ask you the big question. What don't you like about Star Wars? Because like,
okay, so you're saying like you would say I'm a fanatic of Star Wars, but like I have like a mixture of feelings on it, because I feel like to truly enjoy something, you have to be able to acknowledge its failures.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Wars by no means is a perfect franchise. It's had its ups and downs in every form of its existence, both in movies, games, books, comic books. It's had its downsides and its upsides. I would probably say the thing that I don't necessarily like is the fact that Star Wars is, as you said, a genre now, almost, because that's literally all it takes. You slap Star Wars on it, people are like, oh, Star Wars! And while that initial reaction gets you excited for it, you can't just slap that label on anything and expect people to just go with it and be like, yeah, it's great because it's Star Wars. No.
It's the Solo problem, essentially.
And now, that's what we would refer to it.
Yeah, because, like, the problem with Solo is it's going to be a popular movie. It's going to, like, break records, I think. What it's not going to do is be a Star Wars movie that breaks the records. Like, I would imagine it's probably going to be, like, the biggest flop of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't. I can't, as you said, I love Star Wars. I can't make myself go see this movie. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go see it. It's not, every trailer I see, I don't feel excited for it, mostly because this is a story I don't care to know, mostly because I already know it. I've read the books, I've watched the movies. We all know who Han Solo is. And unless you've been living under a rock, we know how his story ends. And I'm okay with that. Episode 7 showed up, and the big shocking end of Kylo killing his dad was a shock and not what anyone really expected. But at the same time, you didn't see people complaining. Mm-hmm. You didn't see I don't remember seeing anything on the internet that was like, how dare you kill off Han Solo? No, people were like, that's about time.
I remember just feeling like a feeling of dread and remorse, just seeing this character I looked up to growing up, passing away.
Yeah.
And
especially
dying.
in a manner that like, honestly, like, getting stabbed by his son was horrible, and like in that moment it was like, oh my gosh, this is a terrible thing. And then not only that, but for him to tumble into an abyss.
Which I think an abyss is the majority of ways people die in the Star Wars universe.
But to have him die like that, like that was even more impactful, because it was like, they don't even get the chance to take his remains, to take him back to Leia, for anything like that. He's just gone. That's it. You will never see any inkling of him again. And while that was an impactful and powerful move, like, great job, Disney. I think that was the right choice. I think the writers of it should, like, that was the best possible option to raise the stakes. But it didn't, like, ruin my outlook on Star Wars. I was glad to see this character has an ending, a conclusion to his story. It may not be the one that originally was made for him through all the older, like, the books and stuff that Disney said is no longer canon, but it was a fitting end, I felt. What I don't like is the idea that we can just take that now, because that character's story is over, and we can do a prequel and everyone be okay with it because, well, it's Star Wars. And it's Han Solo. And everyone loves Han Solo. Yes, I love Han Solo. I love Harrison Ford Han Solo. I love Han Solo that I saw die. And not Han Solo we already heard stories about. Like, I feel like the majority of the Solo movie is going to be the stuff that we already knew he did, because he talked about them or other people talked about them.
And the thing is, it's backstory for a character we don't really need backstory for, because of how much he's talked himself up because of how much other people have talked himself up.
The only thing that would make this film surprising would be if the entirety of it was him just sitting.
Yeah.
Just not doing anything. And while we would expect that, because we would be like, oh yeah, he's a scoundrel, of course he lied, it would still be like, oh, okay, well, we didn't expect anything. Like, what did you want from us? Like,
and the fact that I know that he survives, at least to later movies, means that the stakes aren't very high. The events that happen in Solo, I shouldn't care about because I know Han and Chewbacca are going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And I don't care about Emilia Clarke or Woody Harrelson, so long as Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Lando Calrissian make it out alive, which they very clearly do.
Had this movie come out after like episode 3, would have made total sense. Been perfect. And then episode 7 comes out and he dies, it would have been more shocking and like, whoa. But that's not how they did it, and I feel like now, especially, it's weird because now like it's a yearly thing now to have Star Wars. So honestly,
I think we're getting genre fatigue at this point.
Solo coming out is just, it's tiresome. I watched episode 7. I watched Rogue One. I watched episode 8. I don't want to watch Solo. I'm gonna go see episode 9 because I want to know how it ends. This is the end of this new trilogy. Cool. I hope someone important dies.
So Ryan Johnson does his trilogy, and then David Benioff and D.B. Weiss do their trilogy. Dylan, we have 6 more movies. We have 7 more movies. We have another anthology movie and then 2 more trilogies.
I think that's what I hate the most about Star Wars. Is, again, if you just put the label on it, you can keep making the franchise go. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily the best choice. It's almost like an anime that runs too long. Mm-hmm. Eventually, you're like, okay, I want to get to the end.
And then you're just like, wait, it's still going on?
Dragon Ball.
One Piece. But, like, okay, you being such a diehard fan, you like Star Wars. We've established that. Is there anything that would change your mind on, like, another 6 movies? Like, is there anything specific that
would make me want to see them?
That would make you, like, change your view of, like, oh, I have genre fatigue. Because I know, like, maybe 1 or 2 things that I can think about that would make me change my mind. But I want to hear what yours would be first.
Old Republic. I want that.
Okay, never mind. That's what
one. I want. I want the story of old.
Because
like, I would love to see the original, like, Sith army versus the Republic of old. Like, that is more exciting. Yes, I know that in the future, Darth Sidious and Darth Vader and all of this is gonna happen. I know that. But honestly, the things that happen in the Old Republic don't strongly affect the world that we know now. Other than the whole the rule of 2 for Sith is really one of the, like, major things, and that only matters in the fact that Darth Sidious just keeps pulling apprentices out of his butt every time one of them dies. And then he lost his last one, and he decided, Anakin, you're it now, because for some reason a Jedi would have a close relationship with a Chancellor. Yep, that makes sense.
I'm gonna take a gander and say you don't appreciate the prequels very much.
No. Okay. I do not understand the hatred for the prequels. I don't get it. Do they have blatant issues? Yes, you would be an idiot not to notice them.
Oh, yeah.
Do they ruin the movies? No. I feel like, again, it's similar to now. They slap Star Wars on it, and everyone went with it. And that's fine. I enjoyed Qui-Gon Jinn and young Obi-Wan. Thought that was cool. Their battle with Darth Maul, cool. All of that little backstory to Ben Kenobi was interesting.
And racial stereotypes from the Gungans and the Trade Federation.
Look, no one understands where George Lucas got Jar Jar Binks. He pulled that one out of his brain and said, "Let's go with it."
Steve wants to give his 2 cents real quick.
Steve, go ahead.
So here's the thing with these newer movies and the things coming out and stuff like that. The thing is, like, George Lucas isn't there now, and George Lucas is one of those producers, directors that just comes out with things and it's just like, wow. He's not doing this now. Like, he might kind of like give like, yeah, that would be pretty cool. Like, he gives some 2 bits here and there, but that's not the case anymore. So now we're just getting these kind of subpar stories, or like Rogue One. Like, yeah, it was good, but like, it's like whatever. Like, they probably could actually made that a better like Netflix series than an actual movie. But it's just kind of the point, like, yeah, like, we're just slapping Star Wars on something, and it has no meaning, it has no passion, because, like, George Lucas and Lucasfilm in general isn't really, I don't know, like, it's not what it used to be, it's not there, and it's just kind of like, hey, this is just a cash cow now. But that's just my 2 cents, so I'm going to go back to playing Breath of the Wild.
Well, you're not wrong.
Well, my opinions on the prequels is that no one can deny how phenomenal of a director, producer George Lucas is. I mean, and I'm going to quote SpongeBob here, the inner machinations of his mind are in fact an enigma. And
Patrick says that.
I believe you would go insane if you tried to understand how George Lucas's mind works. But you can't, you also cannot deny that he has some flaws. Like, his perfectionism, not really perfectionism, control. The fact that he won't allow anyone to make suggestions on his creations might ultimately have affected the outcome of the prequels, because someone could have suggested, hey, maybe not Jar Jar, and maybe like and I remember hearing a story of how Hayden Christensen recommended that in the scene when Anakin confronts Obi-Wan, that in that moment in episode 3, in that moment, Anakin just kind of has like a breakdown because it like hits him all at once, everything he did. And he's like just confronting the one person he cared about most, aside from Padme. Just to see him there and to see like the anger in Obi-Wan's face, like it all just hit him at once. But then he realizes that he's too far gone for redemption, and then they fight. And like George Lucas like almost threatened to like fire him.
Yeah.
Right there for simply making that recommendation.
He's probably mad because it was a better idea, and he was like, no.
I feel like that would have like had so much more emotional weight to it, just to see Anakin Skywalker, the man that single-handedly eliminated the entire Jedi Order, just break down in front of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Not really single-handedly. He had a lot of clones.
He had a lot of clones, but you also have to admit he did a lot.
I mean, he did kill
damage.
kids.
He did kill kids.
Good job, Anakin. Good job.
Well, you know why he killed those kids, right?
So they couldn't rise up against him?
No, because they called him Master Skywalker, and he remembered he wasn't made a Jedi Master, and he got salty. And he was just like, I would have let you go, kids. I would have let you go.
So
you had to say it.
Okay, so Dale, let's just go ahead and then establish this. Would you say you're more of an originals fan versus prequels? Or I don't think I've met a single person that would say they think the prequels are better than the originals.
I think they both have their own charm to them.
I think because honestly, when I go back and I watch the original 3 films, there's a lot of things in them that is honestly hard to look past because they're dated. They're much older, especially now.
And the acting performances are actually they're actually considerably bad.
Yeah, they're not the greatest for the okay, so
for the
I
time
think,
they were probably phenomenal, but now when you look at it, it's extremely cheesy.
I think I understand honestly the existence of Jar Jar Binks because when did episode was that? Is that episode 1?
Yeah.
When did episode 1 come out?
That was like 2000, 2001.
Yeah. So
I thought it was earlier than that. I thought it was like 97.
we can
98.
Google it.
99 to 2001. It was around there.
Hold on, and I'll Google it. But what I'm saying is around the time that episode 1 came out was a time where action movies and such were a lot more common, a lot more public and acceptable. And in the majority of action films that you watch nowadays, you have that comedic relief because it's drama and it's tense, there's suspense and everything's blowing up, or there's very tight angles on a woman's butt. Like, there's a lot going on. You need that character that can kind of like level out and ground everything. So I feel like Jar Jar Binks was George Lucas's attempt at that character, because if you watch any of those movies, there's not really any comedic relief. In episode 2, most of the comedic relief came from the droids. And
or just little quips Obi-Wan made.
Yeah, like, that was the majority of it. Episode 3, I can't think of any real comedic relief. That was
that was just a very dark movie.
Yeah, it was dark film.
It was war.
Pretty much the whole way through.
It was the whole aspect of war. And like I said, like, so both series have their charm. Like, the original movies is like a space opera to a T, short of like any musical numbers, but unless you count the score by John Williams, which is absolutely phenomenal. I don't think anyone could ever top John Williams as a musical composer, at least until that man passes away, and then we need a new John Williams.
1999.
99?
Yep, 99.
Same year Nathan was born.
16 years after Return of the Jedi.
Okay. So
yeah, a lot of time in filming
almost 2
changed.
decades. But the originals were less of the stories of wartime and more of the story of good versus evil.
Yeah.
How light, no matter how bad the darkness gets, light will always prevail and hope will always win.
Yeah.
That was the main message of the originals. The prequels, no one can deny that the prequels, their main story was the creation of the greatest villain of the Star Wars genre.
Well, yeah, because
Darth Vader was just a character with such mystery to him until Episode 5, and you got the big reveal that he was Luke's father.
Episodes 4 through 6 happened, and when they came out, they weren't known as episodes. They weren't even called Star Wars A New Hope. It was literally just A New Hope. That's all the name of the movie was. They didn't change the name until after like all 3 films came out and episode 1 was coming. That's when they changed it to Star Wars Episode whatever. So by the time the prequels came out, the whole point of, like, at that point, everyone was like, there was not a whole lot of books or outside expanded universe info. So a lot of people were like, how did Darth Vader have a son that could come and beat him, and how did the Emperor become the Emperor? Why are there stormtroopers that's apparently a galaxy-wide army?
And it was also the prequels, and this is an opinion I've cultivated over time, they were, and you can disagree with me if you'd like, they were also showing how the Jedi became corrupted over time. And originally, the Jedi were supposed to be warriors of peace that upheld peace in the universe, but to see them slowly become the warmongers that they swore to defeat and stuff like that. With like Jedi, who are supposed to be impartial warriors of justice, becoming generals of armies and leading these armies into battle, and it almost seeming like they're the ones that are the warmongers and stuff like that. And also seeing the hypocrisy of Obi-Wan and stuff like that, and that it might have been Obi-Wan that slowly turned Anakin to the path of the dark side. And I know Darth Sidious helped, but it was Obi-Wan's logic of, you're not allowed to feel anything. You have to shut all emotions down.
That's what Obi-Wan was taught, though.
But here's the thing. He couldn't get over his emotions and kill his apprentice.
Yeah.
He was a hypocrite through and through, because
most Jedi are.
He couldn't get over his love of his apprentice and deal the final blow.
Yeah, all Jedi are. Yoda wasn't impartial. Yoda had very strong relationships and feelings for everyone. That's why he was constantly sad or something when something bad happened.
And it was the story showing that the Jedi aren't as perfect as the galaxy built them up to be. And it was also the story of Anakin turning to the dark side and becoming that evil man that we knew. But both series have their charm to them, and I love them both equally. Like, say what you will about the prequels and their CGI quality or what not, but I very much enjoyed the prequels and what they were trying to accomplish.
I mean, for the time that they came out, CGI wasn't that bad. When you think about the fact that CGI still was fairly new at that time, it wasn't a big thing. I think really the only other movies at that time that tried it a lot was Jurassic Park and stuff. So, I mean, I feel like that's a bit of an unfair criticism when you look at the limited resources compared to what we have now.
And then when we talk about the new movies, like, stuff from Force Awakens up, let's talk about what we like and don't like about them. I love the visuals. I love how much work goes into the movies. Like, it's not just a CGI fest. Like, the aliens again are like almost puppet like they were in the originals. There's a lot of work and detail that goes into these. There are shots and camera angles that aren't taken in both the prequels and the originals that give you more of that dynamic feel that the others kind of lacked, because they were just the prequels were big CGI fests, and then the originals were just like that static camera angle and stuff. And it wasn't until you got the remastered versions that you had like the epic space battles and stuff like that. But the let's just go ahead and call them.
What are they referred to as? I'm gonna look it up.
I'm just
gonna see if they have a name.
I'm just gonna call them the third trilogy. The third trilogy, their visuals are stunning. The worlds and the universe itself feels like it's a genuinely lived-in place. Like, it feels real. And the score is still phenomenal. The thing I don't like is it seems like they're almost trying to modernize it, so like real world problems also exist within
the sequels.
That universe. That's all they are. The sequels.
We have the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and now the sequel trilogy, and then you have the anthology films.
Okay. But that's how I feel about those movies. I feel like they're trying to bring the whole social justice aspect into it. And I also feel like in a universe where you've got this huge war going on, they're very afraid to kill off super important characters.
Yeah. I agree with you on like what you were saying, like the visuals and stuff now I feel make it even more Star Wars. Like I love watching the older films, the originals and the prequel. I like watching them, but I remember the first time I went and saw The Force Awakens and you get that first shot of like a Star Destroyer going through space, and it's like it was so enrapturing seeing it done with today's technology and how we can do it today. It blew my mind, because it was like all I could think of was like what the originals looked like, which was typically a model in front of a backdrop, and that's it, compared to now where we can do like maybe that but with CGI and change it up a little bit and just make it look more beautiful whenever they go to a planet shot, and you can and it looks more detailed than just a ball, like a big green ball sitting there. It actually has depth, and when it goes to Star Destroyer or Star Killer base, and you see it's a snow planet and everything, like the way they made it look when it has like its weapon open and everything, like the fact that we're able to accomplish that, I think only increases the feel of Star Wars, which is great. I love that feeling. I don't necessarily care for this story. I feel like they wanted to wrap up, I guess, what happened to the characters from episodes 4 through 6, but they couldn't justify making a film about a bunch of old people. So instead, they brought these new, younger characters that, honestly, most of us don't care about. I don't care for Rey. I don't think that she should be the hero. If anyone deserves to be the hero of this story, it should be Poe. Poe's done more, honestly, than the majority of them have. Mm-hmm. Which, you know what? You know what annoys me the most about Rey?
What?
She holds the lightsaber wrong.
Well,
She puts her hand super close to the blade, like real up high on the lightsaber, and it's like, first, it's a saber you hold with two hands, not just one, two, and both hands are lower on the blade. They're not up against the blade, because then when you have like a clash, like when her and Kylo hit and they slide their lightsabers against each other, in reality, what should have happened is Rey should have lost her stupid hands because they're too far up on the lightsaber, and the impact should have drove her hands into it. But that's the whole point of how they were designed to be held like a sword, lower on the handle, typically like the lower half and mid grip. And then you would hold it like that, like you're holding a baseball bat, not all the way up to the blade, because that's not gonna get you anywhere. You can't really control where the blade's gonna go, and it's just stiff, and you're not doing anything with it. That annoys me more than anything in those films.
Well, I don't like Rey just because I don't like Rey.
I mean, I don't like her. I don't like her as a character.
She's got way too many like differing ideologies. She's got like 14 different characters that she could be in any given scene in The Force Awakens. I like her better in The Last Jedi because she does seem to be one character with one driven goal instead of like multiple characters in The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Unsure of what she's supposed to be doing.
I like Poe primarily because he's very clearly an experienced pilot, and you can see his experience shine through every scene he is.
I feel he's the most down-to-earth character.
I don't like every other character in these movies because they win simply because of luck and because of plot convenience. Rey should not have been able to beat Kylo simply because she was a warrior chosen by the Force or something like that. Life has taught me that luck only goes as far as the effort you put into it. And the harder you work, the more luck you have. Kylo should not have lost to Rey in The Force Awakens. And he certainly wouldn't lose to Rey now simply because Rey had a powwow with Han Solo and then 4 days of training with Luke Skywalker. Like, it doesn't make sense that she should have been able to beat Kylo, who has been training for years. For years to do this stuff. And then also Finn being able to beat Captain Phasma, the most elite warrior within the First Order, who has put so much time and effort into her training, and then she just gets beaten by the janitor.
She's so
it's
experienced and epic that she gets to have a full chrome armor and a cape.
The cape! Everyone knows if you have a cape, you're awesome.
And she can't do anything. Which, by the way, if you're gonna have possibly one of the best characters from Game of Thrones play your character in Star Wars, make her more important!
Give her more than 5 minutes between two movies to be on the screen.
Like The Force Awakens, it was kind of comical. Like, does it have a trash chute? Haha, it's funny, because Han Solo and all of them got thrown in a trash chute. Ha ha ha. We get the joke. But when The Last Jedi happens, and she has her little sword thing, which, by the way, was cool. She has that. She gets to get, like, 2 swings in, and then loses?
If you're gonna create gender bent Boba Fett, at least make her cool.
And also in this social justice world they live in, because, you know, they had to set free the alien horses. Man, she should win. She's the woman. Like, make her important. Don't sell toys and franchise this character that you're not even willing to give us a scene where she's worth something.
Oh yeah, there's so many, like, things they put in the movie specifically for merchandising, like porgs. Like, those were only
the new
Ewoks. They were only in episode 8 to sell plushies. That's all they were there for. That's all they were in there
I'm not
for.
gonna lie. In The Last Jedi, the only scene that I wish would have happened, other than...
Are you talking about
other than Leia dying?
When the porg gets hit in the head with a lightsaber?
I
saw that too.
I wanted, more than anything, one of those cute, plushy, adorable, furry things to have a lightsaber driven through it. I wanted it, and it didn't happen. I was so upset at that point.
So we can have a whole separate podcast for all the problems we have with the sequels. I would say that my favorite movie of the new movies, I would probably say, is Rogue One. Honestly, out of all the now 4 movies, both the sequel and the anthologies combined.
Yeah. Yep.
And Rogue One wasn't considered the best of those, but in my opinion, I feel like it might have been the best because it introduced new characters that you genuinely cared about and wanted to be okay in the end. And then
they weren't.
But what was more important is you got to see the stakes that the Rebel Alliance was up against. That was a major victory for them. That was a humongous victory for the Rebel Alliance, and you saw them lose so much because of it.
Don't get me wrong, it's a lot like Solo in the fact that going into that film, you knew what the result was. They get the Death Star plans, but you didn't know all of these people had to die to do it. Because most of us assumed that, because what's like in episode...
They just like got
episode
them.
4, it's like a Bothan spy got it, and that was it. But what you don't know is that a Bothan spy didn't sneak into a facility and steal the plans. No, an entire force of rebels hammered onto this place so that they could transfer some files, and then everyone died.
A capital ship was captured and potentially destroyed to get these plans. There were several thousands of people that died just getting these plans to Princess Leia, and this was eventually the battle that turned the tide of the war for the rebels, because even after they were cornered on Hoth, and even after the last fleet attacked the second Death Star, being able to destroy the first one was the symbol of hope that the galaxy needed to rally behind the rebellion.
It's almost like the movie was called A New
Oh,
Hope.
shut up. But it was the symbolism behind Rogue One that you knew so many people died for this mission, and that was the moment that turned the tide.
And I think that's exactly why a movie like Solo is not gonna... It's gonna sell well. People are gonna go see it because it's Star Wars, but it's not gonna do as well because the stakes aren't nearly as high. There's not a universe-changing event happening. We're just watching one man's story. And while I think on the small screen that's impressive, like kind of like Steve said, I think it would do better as a Netflix series. Mm-hmm. Watching the stories of the Han. That would be interesting. The rest of it, not really. I don't think...
Something kind of like similar to Clone Wars and stuff like that.
Yeah. Make it an animated series. I'd watch it. I loved the Clone Wars. I thought that was a wonderful... I didn't watch the Rebels, mostly because I don't like the Rebels. If I'm being honest,
I don't like Disney Star Wars that much.
No, Disney mostly
the fact that they can funnel Disney money into a Star Wars movie and get it the funding it deserves is phenomenal.
I just wish...
But I've not been intrigued in the Disney story for a while now. I watch it because Star Wars, but I mean, and so long as it has Star Wars, I'm going to watch it. Doesn't mean I have to enjoy it.
Oh, and by the way, if someone like Finn does not die in this next film, I'm going to be angry. I'm already angry. The man should have died. You should have let him die in a blaze of glory where he would be remembered, where he would have mattered. But no, you had to let SJW Asian girl come in and save the day and then awkwardly kiss him when he was obviously like, I'm about to die. What's going on? Like, you ruined that scene. Like, the scene was already super cool, all this crazy stuff happening. 2 things in that scene ruined it. Finn not dying, and Luke being a hologram. Those 2 things ruined that scene. That movie, to me, was amazing, was great, but first, it could have been probably an hour shorter, and it would have been so much cooler if Luke had somehow, like, destroyed that onslaught that came towards him.
Or, like, use the Force kind of like Kylo did to stop the lasers and then, like, shoot them back at the AT-ATs.
Like, they could have made that so much... No, don't get me wrong. The whole thing of him projecting himself across the universe to save them. I get it. It makes sense. There is no logical way he could have gotten there any other way that quickly, but that's what would have made it even cooler. The greatest pilot that has ever existed shows up because he hasn't lost his touch, and he is still the most cool Jedi we know, and like, does all that. But instead you made him an old man who's sitting on his butt on a random planet, who projects himself shadow clone jitsu over there, and then fades.
You don't know how the shadow clone works.
And then fades into wherever Jedi go when they fade, because that's not death.
Texas.
Oh my gosh, The Last Jedi did it first.
What?
Infinity War has nothing. Last Jedi did it first.
Okay, we're gonna end the podcast around here, but thank you for joining us. Thank you for everyone that has subscribed to us recently.
Let's get like a final I guess verdict.
I'm gonna give you
Star Wars stinks.
Anyway, I'm going to give you a little tidbit as we end. But let's go ahead and get a final verdict.
All right, you give yours first. Dale.
Okay.
Overall, Star Wars from prequels to now, what do you think?
They are wonderful movies that have defined a generation, but I feel like with the way they're going, they may have outstayed their welcome.
I would have to agree. Again, part of my childhood, a very big part of it, made me very happy. Every time I go into a store and I see an R2-D2, I squeal a little bit like little girl.
It's terrifying.
But I definitely think that it's a genre that should die.
I don't think it should
not necessarily die, but it needs a conclusion, and it needs to stay concluded.
Well, either that, or if you're gonna keep bringing Star Wars back, don't make it back to back. Don't have a movie come out 5 months after another movie. That's how you get genre fatigue. And I feel like they're trying to bring the Marvel Cinematic Universe logic into the Star Wars franchise, which doesn't really work because there's so many more characters in the MCU than there are in the Star Wars universe.
Well, honestly, in the MCU, I got burnt out. That's why I never saw Ant-Man or Civil War.
I liked Ant-Man when it came out. I just can't tell you why now.
I didn't go see Ant-Man. I didn't go see Black Panther because I was burnt out. It wasn't until Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War, I was like, oh, I want to get back into the MCU. And I feel like it's the same way with Star Wars. It was like, Episode 7, awesome, it's back. Since 2000 whatever, it's back, awesome. But now it's become a yearly thing, and this isn't even a yearly. We had Episode 8 and then Solo 5 months later. That's not, I don't want it. It's too soon. A yearly release is already really quick.
I think maybe every 2 or 3 years. If you're gonna follow this model, do the Game of Thrones logic. The reason Game of Thrones is so popular is because it takes so long between seasons to come out. People are just, please,
they want that quality.
Me more.
They want that quality. They want it to be good. And I honestly, the visuals are great. Obviously, acting is better than what it used to be. But there's still plenty of areas they could improve.
And there's no such thing as true perfection.
Honestly, my favorite character in the whole movie is not even a major character.
Please, and Disney, you're never going to hear this, but I'm going to say this. Please let the next anthology be Fett. Please let it be Boba Fett. Please.
That's all we want.
Please, for the love of God.
You know what I want?
I want Boba Fett, please.
You want to know what I want? Before we close, this is what I want. We said earlier, Old Republic and stuff. We'll go further than that. I want Mandalorian Wars. That's what I want.
So, now that we're about to end this podcast, I'm going to tell the listeners and also you an observation. I don't think Luke died at the end of episode 8?
No.
No, because if he has the power to, like, make a hologram of himself on that planet, then he probably, like, for cinematic purposes, made a hologram on that second planet.
It's a hologram
and
of a hologram.
He's just teleported somewhere, and he's like, he left his clothes, so there's just like this naked Luke Skywalker just chilling somewhere. Everyone have a good night.
Oh.